That's unthinkable to me. That you have an opportunity in your lifetime to be a professional, that you think about quitting. See, you don't quit it, and you don't quit in sports. You retire. You don't get to quit. It's not an option. See, someone told me that a long time ago. That ain't even an option. And the person told me that, he ain't here anymore. He died. This is what's great about sports. This is what the greatest thing about sports is. You play to win the game. Hello? You play to win the game. You don't play to just play it. That's the great thing about sports. You play to win. And I don't care if you don't have any wins. You go play to win. When you start telling me it doesn't matter, then retire. Get out.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Randall Handles Football Podcast. I am your host, Randall Tiervis. Today we're going to break down some of the recent deals that have been struck in the NFL, and this includes the trade that sent safety Jamal Adams to the Seattle Seahawks, as well as the new contract signing of Joey Bosa to the Los Angeles Chargers. So without further ado, let's get started. The Jets traded away their all-pro, two-time Pro Bowl strong safety Jamal Adams to the Seattle Seahawks for a whopping 3 draft picks. Including 2 first-round draft picks and 1 third-rounder. So the Jets will receive the Seahawks' first-round pick the next 2 seasons in 2021 and 2022, as well as their third-round pick in 2021. Now, from the Seahawks standpoint, this is a lot of draft capital to give up for a player such as Jamal Adams. Now, I understand that Jamal Adams is an all-pro safety. However, the bottom line is he is a safety. And safeties are not exactly at a premium in the NFL. A lot of teams feel that safeties can really be plug and played, and there's not a whole lot of reason to invest that kind of draft capital and even to give lucrative long-term huge contracts to safeties, even safeties as talented as Jamal Adams. If you remember just literally last season when Tyrann Mathieu signed with the Kansas City Chiefs on a 3-year, $40 million contract, that almost made him the highest paid safety. And of course we know that Mathieu really helped the Chiefs to win the Super Bowl. But the question really here is Jamal Adams really on the same level as Tyrann Mathieu? And really, is he even on the same level as some of these other high caliber safeties that have passed through the Seahawks system in recent years? So the first thing I'd like to talk about is just in recent memory, there's been 3 other trades. This is the 4th one that has really made this kind of impact as far as the draft capital goes. There's been 3 other trades in the past 3 years, 3 off seasons, 2 seasons, that have seen teams trade away 2 first rounders for a single player. This all started when the Raiders traded away Khalil Mack to the Chicago Bears for 2 first round picks. Now, it still remains to be seen who won that trade, but needless to say, the Bears are very happy getting Khalil Mack. Pass rushers are definitely at a premium in the NFL, especially elite pass rushers such as Khalil Mack. The following offseason, the Texans traded away 2 first-round picks to bring in offensive tackle, left tackle, the blind side tackle, Laramie Tunsil from the Miami Dolphins. Now, once again, offensive tackles, especially left tackles, the ones who protect the blind sides, are at a premium in the NFL. And these are the kinds of players that usually command top dollar when it comes to contract extensions. The top 3 positions when it comes to NFL in terms of, most important are number 1, obviously the quarterback, number 2, edge rushers, and number 3, offensive tackles. So, the previous 2 trades I just talked about, Khalil Mack and Laramie Tunsil, they fit those top 3 positions. Now, it's this last one where the Rams traded away 2 first-round picks for cornerback Jalen Ramsey. That really was a bit of a head-scratcher move. Like I said, I feel like cornerbacks really don't make that much of a difference when it comes for a team. especially when most teams in the NFL can put up, most quarterbacks are going to pass for 300 yards on a day in and day out already. So, this move didn't really make sense, especially when you already had 2 Pro Bowl cornerbacks in Aqib Talib and Marcus Peters. I really don't understand why the Rams made that trade, but hey. So just looking at Jamal Adams, like I said, is he really worth the deal? Looking at Jamal Adams' career statistics, his rookie season, he put up 83 tackles with 2 sacks and 0 interceptions. His second year, which is his first Pro Bowl nomination, he compiled 115 tackles for 3.5 sacks and 1 interception. And last season, another Pro Bowl season, in his first All-Pro season, he racked up 75 tackles, 6.5 sacks, and 1 interception. So my big takeaway is he's not even a ball-hawking safety. And it's more the ball-hawking safeties are the ones that are really desired in the NFL. In his entire 3-year career, he only has 2 interceptions. And just to compare this to the 2 previous safeties, the 2 previous All-Pro safeties that the Seahawks had in their Legion of Boom Super Bowl seasons, Earl Thomas and Cam Chancellor. Looking at both of their first 3 seasons playing, Earl Thomas racked up 76 tackles, 0 sacks, and 5 interceptions his rookie year. Second season, 98 tackles with 2 interceptions. And in his third year, 66 tackles with 3 interceptions. Cam Chancellor's first year starting, he racked up 97 tackles, 1 sack, and 4 interceptions. The following season saw him get 0 sacks, 0 interceptions, but 101 tackles. And his third season starting, he racked up 99 tackles with 3 interceptions. So if you look at just those statistics from those 2 players, compare them with Jamal Adams, I would rather take Earl Thomas or Cam Chancellor any day of the week over Jamal Adams. In my personal opinion, what I'm saying is Jamal Adams is one of the most overrated players in the entire NFL. Now, don't get me wrong, he brings toughness, he brings leadership, but he's not the kind of player that will make a huge impact for a team, especially a team that, is in a win now mode with Russell Wilson at the quarterback. So, needless to say, though, Pete Carroll is a great coach. He gets the most out of his safeties, especially out of his defensive backs. And so I think he will get the most out of Jamal Adams. It just remains to be seen if this was a worthwhile trade. So now I kind of want to change directions a little bit and talk about the Joey Bosa deal. Joey Bosa last week signed a 5-year, $135 million contract extension. And out of that $135 million, $102 million of this was fully guaranteed. This fully guaranteed money of $102 million was the most guaranteed money that a non-quarterback has ever received, especially a defensive player. So Joey Bosa becomes one of the highest paid players in the entire NFL, especially on the defensive side. And just to compare this, a few days before, a week before Joey Bosa signed this contract, Myles Garrett also signed a contract extension, even though he had 2 years until he was a free agent. Myles Garrett signed a 5-year, $125 million contract extension. And at the time, he had the most guaranteed money ever dealt out to a defensive player at $100 million. So as you can see, Joey Bosa gets $10 million total, more than Myles Garrett, and $2 million more guaranteed money. And the person that I want to compare these 2 players with is Aaron Donald. Aaron Donald, over the past 4 seasons, has been the gold standard in what you look for in an interior lineman, a lineman who pass rushes. And mind you, Aaron Donald more plays from the inside, whereas Bosa and Garrett more rushed passer from the outside. So that makes Aaron Donald even more valuable when we look at their statistics. Now, if I just compare the 2 players, Bosa and Myles Garrett, I think Joey Bosa right now is the more talented pass rusher, is the more accomplished player. However, I think Myles Garrett still has a bigger upside. The full potential of Myles Garrett still has not been seen. There's still a lot a lot of growth that we can see from it. Whereas Joey Bosa, I feel like we've seen, his upper limit. Which, don't get me wrong, he is tremendous. I do think Bosa is right now one of the top 5 pass rushers in the entire NFL. But I just think there's more of an upside with Myles Garrett. Aaron Donald, 2 seasons ago in 2018 signed his contract extension, which was at the time a 6-year, $135 million contract extension. And that saw $86 million in guaranteed money. And at the time that Donald signed that contract, that gave him the most guaranteed money ever given to a defensive player. Now, like I said, Aaron Donald is the gold standard when it comes to pass rushers, especially on the defensive side. He's a former defensive player of the year, whereas these other two players have not seen that kind of thing. But that's just the way that the market goes. Every season, there's going to be bigger and bigger and bigger contracts that are signed. And although I do believe that Aaron Donald should be the highest paid defensive player in the entire NFL, the reality is he signed it 2 years ago instead of this offseason, which would have made him the highest paid player. It's similar to the quarterback market, how every time a quarterback now signs a contract extension, they become the highest paid player. It remains to be seen if anyone's going to top Patrick Mahomes' deal, however, but, we could see the same thing happen when Dak Prescott really does hit free agency. So just looking at Bosa's stats over his first 4 years in the NFL, in his rookie season, when he took home Rookie of the Year honors, Bosa had 40 tackles, 10.5 sacks, and 1 fumble forced. In his second year in the NFL, he racked up 60 tackles with 12.5 sacks and 4 forced fumbles. In his third year, a year in which he struggled through injuries, I believe it was he had a tricep injury, something like that, where he definitely missed time. He racked up 22 tackles with 5.5 sacks and 0 forced fumbles. And then last season, he was back to his Pro Bowl self when he put up 64 tackles, 11.5 sacks, and 1 forced fumble. Just to compare this to Myles Garrett's number, in Garrett's rookie season, he compiled 31 tackles for 7 sacks and 1 forced fumble. In his second season, which thus far has been his most productive season, it was a full season. He played all 16 games. He racked up 41 tackles, 13.5 sacks, and 3 forced fumbles. And then, of course, last season, which saw his season end abruptly when he got into that big fight with Mason Rudolph, took off his helmet, used it as a club, and basically almost got kicked out of the entire NFL, but was definitely suspended for the rest of the season. I think it was like 6 or 8 games. But through those 10 games that he played, he had 28 tackles, 10 sacks, and 2 forced fumbles. So definitely both of these players are a force to be reckoned with. They're definitely, premier pass rushers, which, like I said, premier pass rushers, elite pass rushers are at a premium in the NFL. But even still, when we compare both of these players to Aaron Donald, I just see no comparison. In Donald's rookie season, again, as an interior lineman, he racked up 45 tackles, 9 sacks, and 2 forced fumbles. The following year, 67 tackles, 11 sacks, and 0 forced fumbles. The following year, 45 tackles, 8 sacks, and 2 forced fumbles. The following year, which really started his all-pro trajectory and eventually Defensive Player of the Year, he compiled 39 tackles, 11 sacks, and 5 forced fumbles. Then his Defensive Player of the Year where he had 53 tackles, 20.5 sacks, and 4 forced fumbles. And then, of course, last season, 44 tackles, 12.5 sacks, and 2 forced fumbles. Like I said, pass rushers are at a premium in the NFL. A lot of teams are moving to a throwing kind of offense. And so, teams need those pass rushers who put pressure on quarterbacks and force the ball out of their hands. All in all, I think the Bosa deal, I think the Garrett deal, and I think that they're deals that had to be done. I think, it's going to keep them around on their teams for a long time. If you're the Chargers, you had a down season last season. You need to keep that core together, and Bosa definitely is a part of that core. And then if you're the Browns, Browns are always in turmoil, but, they were expecting a turnaround season last season. It didn't exactly happen. Expect big things from the Browns this season. Expect Myles Garrett to hopefully start reaching his full potential. So this concludes another episode of the Randall Handles Football Podcast.
I don't care who you play, whether it's a high school team, a junior college team, a college team, much less an NFL team. When you turn the ball over 5 times, 4 interceptions, 1 for a touchdown, 3 others in field position to set up touchdowns, you ain't going to beat anybody I just talked about. Anybody. All right? And that was a disgraceful performance, in my opinion. We threw that game. We gave it away by doing that. We gave them the friggin' game. In my opinion, that sucked. What's that? Playoffs? Don't talk about playoffs. You kidding me? Playoffs? I just hope we can win a game.